Test, test. I think we got sound now. Hopefully, now we should be good to start. Insert close on. Hopefully, we got sound now. Sorry about that. Last minute, always something, it seems. Digging the posters. If somebody can shout out and say they hear me now. There you are. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. Sometimes when I'm doing other recording, and I've been recording all day long, I end up with different settings, and the settings don't sync with what I'm doing on YouTube. I didn't have much time. I was actually 2 or 3 minutes late today. It's been one of those months, I would say. This is the third week in a row that I'm running like 15, 17-hour days with a lot of stuff going on. We've had a lot of people reach out to us. I've just been flooded with stuff going on in every single place that I'm on, including here on YouTube. This is the busiest I've ever been on YouTube, in all honesty. Busiest we've been on a lot of our other platforms. A lot of contacts. We've been doing a lot of sourcing pickups from some calls that were coming out of nowhere. So it's been a hectic, hair-pulling week, but anyway, 3 weeks almost now. We're going to talk about the topic, best things to sell. I've got a sheet of paper. We're going to show exactly what I do. We're going to do a pros and cons sheet. We're going to talk about what things to sell, what things are selling well now. Things along that line are key and important aspects. Before we get into it, though, if you're in some areas, there's certain things there's no way on earth you would be able to get around here. I know tools are great. Snap-on tools are awesome. There's other brands too, but some of the lifetime warranty tools are probably the best ones. You can swap them out and things like that. Well, around here, I have no source to get them. I know they show up, but all the good places that you get them, other than maybe some random garage sale, are through estate sales. And every estate sale company out there already has a guy that they know, and it's already a done deal. They've been dealing with the same people for years. So you're going to run into that wherever you're at. Some things, again, I talked about bulk purchases just the day before yesterday. I put a video up talking about bulk. That's the best way to grow your business exponentially without a huge ton of effort at that point. Now, I had some comments on there. The kids wrote down a little list of them, actually, but I know there was some that people say you'll never find stuff in bulk. And video games was probably 4 or 5 different people commented on video games. Video games are easy to sell if you get the right ones. Even with competition, a video game can sell. Now, where would you get a bulk purchase of video games? And I can tell you right off the bat, we can buy 50 of them at a time at a pawn shop. Not a national chain. It's got to be a local one. Somebody wants to wheel and deal. Now, it's not going to be the superest price in town, but I can easily get $10, $15 profit on most of the games if I buy them that way. Again, because a lot of the pawn shops around here, if they're smaller, they're working off of, high-end stuff. They don't mess with a $25 or $30 video game most of the time. It's not worth their hassle. They're working on bare-bones minimum staff. In some pawn shops, there may only be 3 total employees for that whole pawn shop. At least around here, it's like that. Anytime I go into a few of the ones around here, there's only one person in there. Maybe there's somebody in the back, but the point is that they don't invest a lot of time into things that are cheaper. They're going after the high-dollar jewelry and stuff like that. A lot of them don't like to sell online. So pawn shops I've been going to for, 20-plus years. Maybe I don't do a video on pawn shops very often because I don't like to give away, a honey hole that I got that, I can walk in and get stuff on. But the point of it is, if I want something, I can usually get it locally. Comic books, that was another one that was brought up. I buy long boxes all the time. I mean, they're out there. You can even see them. I don't look on Craigslist much at all. I don't do Facebook Marketplace, and I don't purchase from there anymore because every time I'd call, it was another seller basically, or their reasoning or what I ended up looking at wasn't what they said. Anyway, it's always been a waste of time around here. Most of the Craigslist ads and Facebook posts here in my area, I don't know what they are like in yours, but in my area, it's mostly other dealers, and it's just not worth my time. So I can still get those things. So there still are ads for stuff like that. There still are venues to pick up box slots of those. They still do list them. I still look occasionally, and there are stuff like that. If I go to like a flea market, I've bought long boxes at flea markets dozens and dozens and dozens of times. I've got a stack of them here, including the Doom Patrol's first appearance that I bought in a bulk lot with a bunch of other ones. I got stacks of Golden Age here right now that I bought in bulk purchases. You know, some of it's word of mouth. Some of it's handing out a business card to somebody. Some of it's me saying, hey, if you get me a good purchase or you steer somebody in my direction, I'll give you a referral fee. So if somebody sends someone my way, I ended up buying a good chunk of stuff, I'm going to give them 50, 100, 150 bucks or whatever it takes to get them to tell me next time. They're not resellers, some of these people that I put the word out to. I'm cautious in who I meet. I only deal with people I know, but there's still enough stuff out there. I don't care what you're dealing with, what you're trying to find. Electronics, buy in bulk. Buy in bulk, that's a hot item to sell. Electronics are going to sell all year round. You can sell them on Amazon, you can sell them on eBay. Just like comic books, you can sell on Amazon. I'm ungated in collectibles, so I know it's, for some folks it may be a little harder, but comic books sell very well across the board on most sites out there. There's enough of them out there. Even bronze and modern age comic books have some killer ones in there. What was the last one I had? I think it was Catwoman, issue #1, and we got like 60 or 70 bucks for it. I got 4 of them at the same time in a bulk purchase in a long box with just some random comics. You know, I've got stacks of comics here. I sold some on a whatnot thingies. I've just got so many comics. If you really want to dig into something, there's a will and there's a way. There's people that hand out flyers. There's people that post flyers at all sorts of different places. There's people that take out ads to get people to call them. I don't do the ads anymore, but I've done them. Ads work great. Posting an ad, I buy this, I buy that. Don't discard it. Highest price paid in town for this, and this. Highest price paid. That's the key words that you use for an ad. Won't be undersold, will pay higher than everybody else. In your ad, you put, check out everybody else's prices and I'll beat them, or something along that line. You got to be one of the best people to go to get the best stuff. You know, you're going to get some con jobs. You're going to get some that you might not know for sure if it's a good deal or not. I pass on those. If I don't know if it's a good deal, I don't buy it. If I can't figure it out, I'm not going to buy it because I'm not going to risk investing hundreds of dollars. But let's hop over to the topic here. Now, I'm literally got a pen here, and this is what I would do for anything, and I do this all the time. I learned years ago that you want to set up a pros and cons list. Just like setting up projections, literally that's all it is a pros and cons list. I don't care what the item is that you are going to sell, pro and cons. That's it. That's all that matters at this point. You want to do shoes. You want to do, let's just pick clothing. And I'm not trying to pick on clothing. I did clothing for years. I still have a few pieces. I still buy some of the vintage stuff. I love leather jackets, so my collection of leather jackets, I got to turn the other way because I've got way too many leather jackets. To the point where the wife's a little bit bothered because it takes up so much room in my closet. But anyway, I got like 70 of them. Way more than I need. Way more than I could ever wear. But let's pick clothing. And I say that only because most people have a thrift store and you can get at least some form of clothing. Now, a pro for that is you can find it. So can find. A con for that is everybody can find it. It's a flooded category. So it's flooded. So I'll do a list. I'll come up with everything that I can think of, and I'll have a separate list for each one. I'll go through them one by one. I'll spend an hour if that's what it takes. 2 hours one evening spend if that's what it takes you to go through everything. If you're just starting off, you don't know which way to go, or you've even done it for a while and you're trying to figure out something else to sell. If you put out, let's say, just do 20 minutes, do 5 different categories or 5 different types of items you want to sell. Video games, another example. What's a con for a video game? Well, everybody sells it, but there's a difference between, say, clothing and video games. Video games, there's a limited quantity made. There's a ton of people that want it. Clothing, even if it's a flooded category, there's not enough people due to the amount of different types of clothing out there to make every piece of clothing worth your while, to make a flooded category worth your while. I've done this for a long time. I'm not trying to waste your time or blow smoke up your derriere, but clothing around me, I can't get it. My con for clothing was I can't get it. The thrift stores, the biggest ones, closed down. Both of the Savers closed like 3 years ago. That's about the time we started to sway away. The next biggest thrift store closed down too. It's now reopened under another name or a different store after about a year of being closed. Goodwill around here sends all their stuff to the local auctions. The closest bin is 3 hours away in any direction. I'm not going to drive 6 hours round trip to go to a bin. I've been there once. I didn't even purchase anything. I didn't like the atmosphere. There were people shoving, pushing when a cart came. It was just, I wished I would have recorded. That's been a long time before I was doing many videos, but I didn't like it. It was a clique. There was people who knew each other. Definitely another reseller there that I saw. I didn't like the whole atmosphere at all. It just wasn't my bag. On top of the 6 hours, I'd have to probably get a hotel or something or whatever. I didn't want to mess with it. So I don't have the sourcing for clothing. That's a huge con for me. No matter how hard I'd want to sell clothing, it would be impractical where I'm at. So if you've been to all the local areas, you've checked out flea markets, auctions, you've stepped outside the box, and there's certain avenues like, let's say, car parts. Around here, I can sell car parts any day of the week. I've got NOS car parts in boxes lining one section in the garage right now. Motor City's right here. So there are secondary companies and stuff that I can get the stuff from, sometimes, after the car's so old or on and on, the company goes under. Especially these days, it's a lot easier to find it. But the point is, it shows up, it goes to auction, and boom, you can get a bunch of NOS, 10 cents on the dollar, 15 cents on the dollar, and sell them, piece them out, whatever the case may be. So there's plenty of options to sell that here. If the Motor City isn't by you, you're probably not going to have warehouses of stuff that show up. Around here, you can find like warehouse finds, and they're not even finds because they happen quite often. Old car parts from like the 70s, 80s, and 90s that have been sitting in a warehouse that has went under, or a shop that's went under and hasn't been touched, and now the property is sold and the belongings inside of it are going to be sold, and you've got like a small warehouse in the back of places like this. I bought pallets from a stamp store, from coin stores. A shoe repair shop I bought tons of stuff from when they went under. Restaurants. Businesses in general are fairly good when they do like closeout, going under, liquidation sales or auctions, I should say. That's above and beyond pallets because, well, you got to know what you're doing a little bit, but the options are there for anything. NOS. Around here, like if you had a grocery store, for an example, they do like food, cans. When we were in Mississippi, if like there's a city called Olive Branch, they had it in many places out there. Collins had some. They had like expired food stores. You could literally buy pallets of food just after it expired, and these stores ran a whole store of expired food, even meat. I know somebody's going to say that's illegal. I don't know the legality in Mississippi. I do believe there wasn't a date code law in Mississippi. I don't know if it's federal, but in Mississippi, when we lived there, we've been to the stores dozens and dozens and dozens of times. Anybody who lived in Mississippi 10 or 15 years ago knows exactly the type of stores that I'm talking about. So somebody figured out a way to sell expired food in Mississippi and make a profit on it, enough to fill a store and over again refill that store and pay for employees, overhead, and everything else. It wasn't a charity. This was literally a store. Not just one. We've probably been to 5 or 6 of them just in the local small area. Hattiesburg, Olive Branch, I think, was one. Collins, we went to a couple. Some towns had 2 of them. You'd get boxes of cereal for 10 cents, 25 cents, 6 for $1, $3, $4 boxes. I don't know if it's still like that. I haven't been to look in Mississippi in a while. Last time we went to the coast. Most of those were up in central Jackson, in that area. Collins, Hattiesburg. There was one in Meridian too, as well. Kind of like, what's that chain store? I'm not going to think of the name until the show's done. There was a chain store in Mississippi in the South where they have like NOS pallet damaged goods, and we'd buy Legos. I can't think of the name of it. Wife's going to kill me because I can't think of it. We've been there dozens, and when we lived in Mississippi, there's one in Meridian right off the highway in a plaza that used to have a thrift store in it. The Salvation Army, as a matter of fact. In fact, I think it's in the plaza where the new Salvation Army was. I know if you're not from these areas, it may not mean much, but let's just make sure my sound's still coming out. It's a very small town, Olive Branch, about 20 miles south of Memphis. I'm in the UK now, too, but lived there once for a while. I thought, yeah, the area's a nice area, don't get me wrong. You know what Don thought? I thought about about the ads? What about folks standing together at the bins? I'm sure they are pickers. Yeah, there was a bunch of stuff. I didn't like the whole atmosphere of the bins. I'd have loved to have gotten a pick, but there was just so many rude people, and I'm very mild-mannered. I'm not, cutthroat. I don't have to have everything. I'm not greedy. I'm not just going to push. It was literally that bad where people are grabbing at it, and I could have seen a fight happen there at any minute, it seemed like. The wife said the same thing. The wife and I were there, and anyway, it just wasn't our bag. I'm not one of those who waits out front at a estate sale anymore at all. I don't do any of that. I don't show up and wait an hour before a garage sale opens up. I know there's a lot of people who do, but we make our money in bulk purchases, and I'm not going to stray from that because it works so well. I don't know what to tell you. That's what works for us. I love the sourcing aspect, but this job isn't about having fun. This job's about making money. I can't go out and source just to have the fun aspect of it. It's got to be money. Okay, let's go back to the pros and cons. I know we've kind of strayed. I can find clothing. So we've got clothing, it's flooded. So I've got flood. So another pro or con. What type of clothing are you finding around here? So are you finding high-end clothing when you go around? Have you been to a thrift store? Do you know that the quality of clothing is going to be good enough to make money? If you haven't done clothing before, or you have done clothing, around here when all the thrift stores were open and Savers was here, some thrift stores that were outside or near certain neighborhoods would have far better clothing than any of the other thrift stores in town, the ritzier areas. It's just the way it was. Around here, there was a Savers in Toledo on Secor, and that one usually had the best stuff. It was a little bigger, I think, than the other one, so that was the one we usually went to. If you're from the Toledo area, Ohio, Michigan, you went through this area. I know there's other folks that I've talked to in the feed right now, at least two, that have been through this area and know exactly where I'm talking about. It used to be a movie theater that I worked at that's been torn down long ago across the street from this place, but... So, I always knew and figured out which ones had the best stuff in it. So if you're clothing and you don't have one that has good stuff, that everyone you go to is just average clothing, it's not going to be worth it. So a con would be no high end. There's no high-end clothing. I know I've scribbled this, so I've got scribbles there. I'm a scribbler, I'm sorry. My handwriting's terrible. I should be a doctor. No high-end clothing. So that's a con. What would be another con or a pro? Pro, if you found good clothing, that would be a pro. That would put another notch in the pro side. Another con. Even if you are finding high-end clothing, how much of it is showing up on eBay? If you've got 100 people selling the exact same, or trying to sell the same piece of clothing you have, there's only 10 people that want it. Only 10% of them are going to sell. So I know I don't always look at a sell-through rate, so to speak. I did in clothing. It matters in clothing. Because if a brand's no good and it's not selling through at a specific rate, the brand could die where there isn't enough interest in that specific clothing brand, or styles change. Clothing changes every 10 years. So if you're buying older stuff or buying stuff that's fading out, you could be SOL and invested in the wrong clothing. So again, there's a ton of things you have to look at when it comes to that point. Pros and cons is the best aspect to do for everything. For us, I wanted to do collectibles. In general, I picked generalized categories. I started from the top. I looked at books in general. I didn't pick any kind because who knows what you're going to find. So I did books, collectibles. I had clothing already on my list. I did pros and cons of each category and broke them down. A con that always showed up on every single clothing list that I did was a Vero. Every time, because there was always a possibility, due to the newness of most of the clothing, the 95% of all the clothing that we were selling was newer. There was a high probability that in that time frame I could run across and not realize that something's on the Vero list. Or a Vero could pop up after I list it, which has happened to us before. It wasn't on the list. It's been up for 7 months now. Suddenly somebody's on the list and they're dinging us. Richard Pryor's estate's a perfect example. It was fine when I originally listed it. The items were up for a while, and then boom, it sure enough was on the Vero list and we got dinged for it. It's been quite a few years. I don't blame eBay at all for that one. That's totally Richard Pryor's estate. Loved the guy's comedy, but the estate was overboard. I was selling something in memory of the guy, and it wasn't even licensed by the license was already given to CBS. Anyway, long story short, I know I'm rambling again. A pro for collectibles. Many pros. The pros in collectibles outweighed every other category that I had. One pro for that: easy to store because it's so much of it's paper. Easy to ship, so much of it's paper. So easy to scan if it's paper. Easy to photograph if it's something a little bigger, a button or a pin, a piece of jewelry or something. I know jewelry is kind of like not collectibles, but I'm just giving you some more examples. So the pros list for collectibles was through the roof. It was like 10 to 1 for clothing. Every step of the way. Can I keep getting the clothing? Is there enough estate sales to help me get higher end clothing or sports jackets or high end shoes? There wasn't. And even if there was a couple, what happened was the estate companies knew somebody who bought clothing. So many of them would have some deal worked out. Somebody would come in, supposedly to price it, but it always seemed like there was nothing good at the ones that did that. So we stopped going. It wasn't worth the while. For us, it's all about what's the most viable. What's the risk as well with me selling clothing versus, say, over the counters or something like food type items. What's the risk factor? I always look at the risk aspect of it too. We've got a BOP, but still, I don't want to risk having to deal with my insurance or anything else like that. And it could go up. So these are all factors on why I do this, why I do that. We do sell walnuts and pecans and things like that in season. I know the source. I have a chain of custody letter is what we usually are able to get. I don't know if they're supposed to, but I usually can get one. Not always. Even if I can just take a picture of it, I'll be happy with that. So I can at least provide something in the case that there's anything going on. If you sell on Amazon certain foods, maybe it's not required, but I would always have chain of custody. So if there's like a recall, you're not going to be caught off guard if somebody reports and you don't realize it, or you don't have the right, you're not putting in your expiration codes and things like that, because sometimes there's recalls. And anyway, we've done hundreds of pounds of nuts. We do them on the season. I've talked about it. It's one of those areas that if you're smart and you understand how holiday cake production and pie production works, you're able to snoop in on that one. But so the pros and cons list, let's just say comparing collectibles with clothing, or push clothing out of the list. So we gave up clothing when Savers closed down. That's literally about the same time. Books was another category, as I said, that we looked into, and just books in general. Back 6-7 years ago, maybe a little longer, probably about 6 or 7 years ago, you could take in a scanner that mounted on the bottom of your phone. I have it's dead. I haven't paid for the renew on the service, but and it didn't need internet access. It had the database on the little device, and it had a little thing that I could put in my hand to scan. The phone sat on my waist on my belt, and I could go in. And the winter was easy because it would hide the cord. And anyway, long story short, it was a corded device, and I would just scan it. It would beep if I should keep it. I set up the parameters that said, if I'm going to make such amount of dollars off of this based on current price and all that, to beep. And when it beeped, I knew I just threw it in the cart. Didn't matter if it was a barcoded book anyway. And back when we first started, I didn't used to always look up the non-barcoded ones. These days, I don't even mess with most of the barcoded. I only look at the unbarcoded ones. But so that was always an option with books. But again, it's hit or miss. You've got to do a lot of driving and a lot of footwork. Collectibles, we figured out how to get them in bulk. So that was a pro beyond belief. Again, the biggest category that has the most pros for us, it may not be for you, was collectibles. From that point on, I didn't pick what we're selling right now. I like buttons. I just was lucky enough to walk in on several different people selling it, including a business that had been closed down for like 70 years or something. So I got lucky. But it helps to know people. It helps to talk. It helps to get your word out there. It helps to do rounds and stop by and talk to people until you get the big connections going. That's what it's going to take. Drop enough cards, drop enough flyers, bugging people left and right. Again, it comes down to the pros and cons for us every single time. We stopped doing the books because when Amazon raised the storage fees twice, it ruined our bread and butter. Our bread and butter back in the day used to be the cheaper books, but we sold so many of them. I could get $5-10 books and just sell a ton of them. I'll go into FBA, Home Depot box, drop it off if you're on the road, or mail it because you get the discount. It's pretty cheap, reasonable for shipping stuff to Amazon, considering the size of the boxes. But so overall, books were killed for us. It was dead. The high dollar books don't show up around here. Not a lot of readers, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I just never get lucky enough to see them around here. Even before, say, Goodwill and all the stores around here started sending the high-end stuff to auction, we never did see super, super top dollar books. One here, one there. Not enough to live on. So it all came down to us, and it should all come down to you. Whatever gives you the biggest pros list. Whatever's top-notch on the pros list. Again, it was like 10-1, clothing versus collectibles. So clothing went wayside. It was just too flooded. It's even worse now with the glut of brand new NOS clothing that never even hit the shores yet. That's going to be marked down the minute it gets off of a transfer storage box or a semi box or a crate, whatever they're coming over in is the point. They're immediately marked down. Again, I went to stores just trying to check and see what wholesale available right now. You could work out deals to buy clothing right now at a bulk price from some department stores. I'm just giving you the ins if you pay attention. That stuff's out there now because they're flooded with it. Again, you're going to be stuck with flooded merchandise. It's going to be a roll of the dice whether you're going to get money back, and that's with a lot of items out here. Clothes are even collectible. Yeah, there's collectible clothes. Don't get me wrong. I've sold the vintage clothing. We still will grab them. Still have probably a half a dozen NOS 1960s and 70s new men's shirts from the 60s and 70s in the package, still unopened. I'll buy certain things. I'll buy probably a 3D Harley Davidson shirt or vintage silk bowling shirt or vintage silk Hawaiian shirts or something like that because I know I can instantly turn those over. I don't like clothing. I still have my mannequins and all that stuff just because I do occasionally sell a piece. Or I'll sell it to somebody locally, or there's a couple shops that will buy it for like 50 cents on the dollar of their sale price. And I don't care. It's not worth my hassle to deal with it. And I make a profit immediately. And I don't have to worry about it. I don't mind giving up a profit for freeing up time and all that stuff. It's give or take. If I want my time to be spent better, I'd do it, by selling it. Again, I'm still making a good profit off stuff when you do that. It's basically like a secondhand store for vintage clothing. Most big cities have 2 or 3 of these types of places. New York probably has about 20 of them. I know all through San Francisco and California, they're all over. There's some in Dallas. Austin has a few too, if I'm not mistaken. We've seen them in Tennessee, and Florida I know has at least one in the Orlando area. There used to be a place called Rock and Roll Heaven in Orange Drive in Orlando. The guy there was pretty cool, the guy who ran it. Real long hair. He reminded me of Jim Morrison, actually. But they had a lot of vintage clothing on that street and in that block and in that store. And back then, that was 90s, they were selling vintage tees back then. So, I mean, they were ahead of the curve. Anyway. Yeah, Halloween costumes do sell all year round too. That's another one of those areas that's good. Christmas lights. We could sell them all year round without a problem. Just have to have the right color, and you have to change your keywords in the titles. Don't advertise them as Christmas lights in summer. Advertise them as patio lights. A 2-word change can make something sell. And that's again why people miss out on things, or other people are selling them 10-1 because their keywords are terrible, or they're like on Amazon. You may have to advertise on Amazon if you're selling bulk. If you're in a wholesale deal on Amazon and you think you're just going to be able to move them without promoting them and paying for some advertising, you're probably crazy. At least right now, because there's 20 competitors the minute you start selling them on Amazon. So if you can get an item, we've had items that have been up on Amazon that, there's no other competitors. Those are slim and rare, and I never talk about them to anybody. Even like a best friend, I wouldn't even tell what we're selling just because I don't want it out there. Again, you can't give away the best stuff you got. But so pros and cons, let's get back there. I know I ramble a lot. Pros brought us to collectibles. Now, once we got into collectibles, we had to do another pros and cons list. I know this may seem pointless to a lot of people because I used to get this when I was a general manager, and then as a regional, the employees would roll their eyes behind my back. I know the thoughts a lot of people may have on this, but if you want to be a good business person, an actual business, we're not just talking about you being your single self and selling, which there's nothing wrong with that. I did that myself. But if you want to grow it to where you've got, employees, you're going to make more money. If you can get it big enough to have people that you pay to work for you, you're going to get bigger. You're going to make more money even once you pay that out. Our biggest problem is we've got not enough time, and I've got I could hire like 10 people and probably have them list for years and still not run out of merchandise. So I mean, it comes down to where you're at in your business. Most people wouldn't have that luxury. It's taken us almost 15 years to get here, though. So it's not like you can just get here. I've put my time, I put my dues in. I've earned every single dime that we make, and it's a good feeling. It's a proud feeling knowing that no one's helped you. You had everything against you. I'm not meaning me. I'm just meaning in general. The rest of you out there, the single parents, the single mom that's called or contacted us and reached out and stuff. That's the ones that, I'm. It's proud to know that someone that you've tried to help does extremely well from a dire situation. And some of the situations I've seen are just, let's just say a lot of people are in some dire needs, from time to time. But anyway, I know I'm rambling again. But for the rest of the stuff that I sell, it's been the luck of the draw. We've run into labels. I bought 3,000-4,000 labels 5 years ago or so, vintage alcohol labels and stuff. And we learned from that purchase, and we spent thousands. I mean, maybe $4,200 for that amount of labels, I want to say it was back then. And we immediately sold $9,600 worth of them in just the first few batches we listed. So we got our money back real quick. But I learned after people started contacting me and stuff, who they were in interests and collector fields and clubs and stuff like that, and we were able to get in touch with other people who had collections or locations where I could find collections at. We found where do labels come from. I'm not going to spell it out for you, but I'm sure somebody's spinning their wheels right now. Where do you get labels from? As a business, where do I get labels from? That's all I'm going to tell you. You should hopefully be able to figure the rest out from there. But there's a ton of opportunities once we bought that first lot and realized how much money was involved in this. And again, we made well over that initial 9,600 or so because we kept selling them, we kept listing them, we listed them all, and I think we still have, out of 3,000 labels, I think I still have 300 or 400 up right now, 6 years down the road, and we still sell them. Not all the time, but every other month another one sells. Again, I have nothing into this. It's just passive income. It's nothing, because we've made so much money off of them. But you learn something. So I decided labels was good, only because I was able to find them. If you can't find something, I don't care what you want to sell, you can't sell it. We thought outside the box. I buy labels all the time. Today we were listing labels in several different categories. I had hotel labels going up, three. I had railroad labels going up, hotel labels going up, some airline, Pan American Airways labels were going up, and then on top of that we did roller skating, and there's some V for Victory World War II labels as well going up in that same batch. Right behind that, I've got China items that we've been snagging up every time I can get them. Right now I've got probably around 600 more pieces of paper from China I haven't even looked through. And usually it's the first thing I do, but we've been so busy I've just had to set stuff aside now when it comes in. How do I get stuff like that? Well, again, I was lucky enough to walk up on some and realized why it was there, where it came from, where the original person who acquired it was, how it came here, I guess, is the biggest point. And ever since then, I've been able to find it all the time. Again, I'm looking outside the box. I'm not just going and following along with what everybody else is getting. I don't watch other YouTube videos to get the ideas. I've had to do what I've had to do because there's no thrift stores around here that are any good for the most part. Yeah, you've seen some videos. I found some decent, pretty good items, $100 item, $150 item maybe at a thrift store stuff. But overall, for the amount of time that I put in, it's questionable. I could do far better just even listing the stuff we already have in bulk sitting here. And it's pros and cons. For a lot of folks who hate the shipping aspect of it, you know how easy it is to ship a postcard, a trade card, a sheet music, or any of 8mm film, slides, family photos. It's super easy. There's nothing to it. The return rate on collectibles is another pro. How often do you have a return on clothing? I've had people that tell me it's like 28%. I know the average on Amazon now is like 28%. So almost 1 out of 3 pieces of clothing purchased on Amazon is returned from one of the latest things that I seen. It was probably a month ago I saw that. So, return rate's huge. How often do I get a return on a collectible? Almost never. I mean, for the amounts I'm selling, it's 0.001%. It's some really awful low percentage, regardless of the category, just because it very rarely happens. So that's a huge, monstrous. It's a huge, monstrous difference between other categories. Why would I want to? And again, here's another aspect with it. How many times have I bought, or you've bought, anybody out there bought a piece of clothing that you thought you looked over at the thrift store? Really, I think I've looked at everything. I've looked at the armpits to make sure that hole isn't started there, or there's not some thread coming out, or if it's a single stitch t-shirt or something that it's not pulling out at the bottom or something, or a seam isn't pulled out, only to get home and find a little spot that I missed. And many times that little spot on a piece of clothing will be enough where I won't want to sell it. So again, I've done that more in clothing than any other category I've ever sold in. I've made that mistake. I've messed up far more doing that than anything else. It's routine. That's the biggest mess up I had with clothing, was missing something after looking at it. It always reminds me of Seinfeld with the, what was it, cashmere sweater that George bought for a girlfriend or something. And it had a dot, and I think he tried to give it to his secretary or something. I don't remember the whole story, but the point of it was that little dot, and no one could take their eyes off of it. With a postcard, you scan it at 600 DPI, it's 3 times the size of life on the screen. There's nothing that's left to the imagination on there. You list it and you describe it perfectly. With clothing, it's easy to miss one little tiny defect, which is enough to TO somebody. You could have missed a stitch was off, or a stitch was pulled and you didn't notice it. And sometimes the shirt might look fine. I've bought a shirt or two that somebody else repaired before I bought it from the thrift store. So whoever donated or repaired it once, I didn't see it because I'm looking at the stitching and it looks good from the outside. I didn't turn the shirt inside out. So same thing with pants or something. It's the same principle. Shoes, sometimes there could be a flaw, or this has happened to me once before years back with shoes. The soles were replaced and I didn't get it. I didn't realize that the soles were replaced. So it pretty much killed what I was selling the shoes for. I had to return it. That was, again, 10, 15 years ago, but it happened to us. I don't have any of that issue with collectibles. That's why I sell the collectibles. You don't have many YouTubers talking about it because most of them don't want to mess with the time and the learning curve to get into them. I had no choice. You do what you got to do to get by. You may not have collectibles in your area. It may be radio parts, or it may be I don't know, work clothing. You may be able to get a good deal on tactical gear or something. There's surplus stores around here I could probably work out some form of deal with, I wouldn't doubt. And then I could take those same I did that years ago, back in the 90s or so. There was a couple Army surplus stores. We'd have them hold out anything that was tied to Vietnam, and we'd purchase those at a discount. And I was able to, almost double my money. It wasn't super, it was almost double. So not terrible. I would be able to move it in bulk at least. So, Tommy Bernhard, yeah, no money in clothing or shoes. There are some, but not much. Yeah, I'm sorry. I haven't been paying attention. I wanted to get the topic covered as best I could today. So I'm sorry if I'm ignoring anybody in the chat tonight. Not my intentions. I get people sending hate because I don't discuss the topic enough, and I really want to. I just get sidetracked a lot. So anyway, let's keep going on the conversation at hand here. Everything that I sell, it came down to whether I could get it, and secondly, it came down to whether it was flooded. Third, it came down to was there enough value in it. Even if I can get hundreds of something, if it's only going to give me $2 a pop, I'm not going to want to mess with it. A huge factor in what we sell, again, and I've talked about this many times, and a big factor why I hate clothing is you have to take far more images of clothing. I can do a scan of a piece of paper up to the size of 8.5 by 11 with a duplex scanner, and I can scan 50, 60 items in a minute, and it does both sides of the item. That, like if you're doing 8 by 10 photos or family photos or postcards or any of that, you can even do stamps with a carrier sheet and a clear slotted album stock page. If you're into stamps, you know what I'm talking about. But that's the way to do stamps with the scanner. As long as you're careful. I'm messing up my hair here. So the time it took to do a piece of clothing. If you're doing a nice shirt, you're probably talking 6 or 7 images. You probably have to take the shirt off. your mannequin, your body form, or whatever you're using, turn it inside out and take more pictures. So you might be able to take photos of 6 pieces, 8 pieces in an hour. I can scan if I'm not listing them, I could scan probably 1,000 or more. 1,400 I think is around our top, I think, with taking our semi time at 300 DPI with the scanner in an hour. So again, you'd have to list them and all, but I could list the paper items that we sell. Again, this isn't a brag, this is just a pro. Anybody who's done the same types of items that I sell for any length of time knows these numbers, knows exactly what I'm talking about. I could list easily 45 or 50 postcards without even breaking a sweat in an hour. I could scan them and list that many in that same hour. I can't do that with anything else. I don't have to, all I'm uploading is 2 images to eBay or a copy of the same image. So again, I'll do 2 uploads of the front of a postcard and 1 in the back. I'll do a zoom in on the first one to draw attention to the item itself. So a pro for whatever you're going to sell is ease and quickness to list the item. You want to be able to get as much up as you can in as short of time as you can. Good merchandise, not just junk. If it's stuff that's $15 or more, we're going to list it in an hour. Again, we're going to be able to get up $400. If it's $15, it's more like $600 worth of merchandise in an hour. If you're listing clothing and they're $20 shirts, and with time of photographing them and all that stuff, and the time it takes you to list, you got to do measurements now. Otherwise, you're going to get more returns. You got to do measurements, any defects, anything like that. You might only get it 6 up in an hour. I don't know, 10 minutes. Is that reasonable time to do all that? 8 minutes, 6 minutes? Maybe people can do it in 4 minutes. I don't really know the logistics these days, because I haven't done clothing in a while. But again, the con for clothing is I can't list many of them. It takes so long to photograph them. Now that goes to like me selling lots of stuff. I don't like to do lots anymore on eBay, because if I'm going to do like a lot of 12 sheet musics or something, I got to take probably 12 images. I got to upload them. I've got to edit them if the quality isn't good enough, or play around with them, or crop them to get rid of dead space so you're just looking at the merchandise to sell them better. If you don't do that, you're not going to sell them. If you got distant shots with a bunch of junk behind the image and behind the item you're trying to sell, you're not going to sell them as much as somebody who just has the image shown or just the item. It's a given. You can compare results and you'll see for yourself. So there's so many cons to, same with books. The cons were the storage fees. The cons were I was making 50 cents a dollar a book and it wasn't worth all my time anymore. So there was more people doing it, so they were getting flooded in the cheaper books. So again, there's reasons for that. Toy market. Toys, action figures. Vintage action figures I buy anytime I can get my hands on them. I'm not specializing. I'm not able to massively supply them, but I am able to get them in bulk enough to make it a steady stream of income selling vintage toys. But I don't mind buying broken toys. I don't mind buying incomplete toys. Box, not box, with just the box and no toy. All that's fine. That's all fair game. With toys, it's any kind of toy I can get. And I do have sources, again, to buy them in bulk. I showed a doll we sold the other day. The doll was a bulk purchase of dolls. I bought them in a big box of them. I'm just random dolls. Some of them dated back to about 1890. I have a leather jointed doll with a German porcelain arms, legs, and head right now in inventory. It's a real nice leather one with buttons. It's an original, like Victorian era, but yeah, that was $1. Buying in bulk. I'd never get those prices buying from somewhere else. These were liquidators and stuff. I've still got a few liquidators around here who buy out leftover warehouse junk sales and stuff, and then you can find stuff. But list and ease of listing and selling stuff is one of the biggest factors for us. If I can't list it and it takes more than 5 photos, it's going to get set aside and sit here for a while because I don't want to mess with it right now. We're able to get so much more stuff up. Whether I'm having an employee do it or not, it's a time consideration. It's how much money I can get up, I guess, is the biggest point. We try for at least $400 an hour. For anybody here, I want them to be able to list at least $400 an hour. With all luck, they're photographing, and that counts into the time it takes them to either photo or scan. I've got stands up. I've got, not permanent, I can move them anytime I want, but I've got a permanent setup in several different areas where I can instantly just flick a light on. Camera's all set. When I flick that switch on, the camera and lights come on at the same time. I take a lens cap off and I'm taking photos of something I just bought 2 minutes before I started taking the photos. Again, time. You've got to be able to do it quickly. If it's a piece of clothing, I got to set something up. Most people don't have a huge amount of space to have a complete setup for clothing 24/7 unless they've got, they're doing decent business, I should say. If you're doing it out of your bedroom or a basement, you might not have the space. I don't do clothing, so I'd have to set it all up. So I don't want to mess with it. Even like LP records, they take up far more space than 45s and even 78s. 78's way more, so a con for 78 records would be they weigh more. A con for 78 records is you got to know more. You've got to have more data. You've got to have more source for pricing than just eBay any day of the week. They do sell on more platforms, so a pro of 78s is that I can sell them on a minimum of 3 platforms, 4 counting Del Camps, but I could probably sell them on Etsy, I would imagine, too, but I've never really tried, in all honesty. They sell on Amazon. So again, there's pros and cons for everything. Private label. How many times have I been asked about, should I do private label? I don't hear most other YouTubers or resellers or anybody really talking about it at all. I don't watch much, but I haven't heard a word or a peep out of it. They used to be a big thing. Maybe it still is, I don't know. But there used to be a lot of people talking about, I do private this, private that. I order them from, from China or wherever they're ordering them, and they're having them shipped here in crate form. In all honesty, that's dead in my book. Unless you've got some super product that no one's ever heard of, even if you're paying for promotion aspect of it, if it's a product that you can just buy off a shelf and it's private branded, anybody can copy you. You have no protection, I guess. Anybody could mimic your exact production, everything. They could buy from the same person and it would be dead. So, that would be a no-go. Like if you're wanting to do wholesale, it's the same basic principle. You've got to figure out where to buy it from. Pallet people. There's people that just do pallets, and it's the luck of the draw. If you're able to do that, you have to have space. So a con for pallets is the space. A con for pallets is you don't know if you can trust what the invoice coming in is going to say. Now, bulk, we've personally had no issues, and they have corrected everything that we've seen. So I don't know. I know there's a lot of people who have said they've had issues, but we've been very selective on buying bulk. We've bought pallets before, though. So don't get me wrong. Pallets can work, but again, you've got to have space. That's a big con. A con is maybe 30%, 40% of the pallet stuff in there may be junk. So you might have a high attrition rate and have to throw away 30 or 40% or donate, whatever you're going to end up doing with it. You might not be able to sell it. Some of the items you might be gated on where it would sell best. Again, there's a con and a pro for almost anything. Kitchen stuff's like a big area. If you can buy kitchen and household stuff like kitchen supplies specific, like dishes, the right dishes. Shipping might be a pain, but silverware is a huge area. There's ways to get that in bulk. There's ways to get secondhand silverware in bulk as well. If you've been to an art fair, you should know exactly what I'm talking about. I think there's a few people in-house that have probably been to a few art festivals and fairs. You'll see people doing stuff with silverware. Ask them where they get it. You can buy it in bulk. You can buy it if you're up in silverware patterns. There's somebody I know that makes a killing on silverware. Used silverware because he knows his patterns, and when he doesn't know them, he knows how to look them up. It would be a long learning process for me, so I wouldn't touch it. But so there's people that can just sell replacement silver. There's a site that just sells replacement silverware. There's a site that just sells replacement china pieces. There's a site that buys entire china sets from people just so they can add it to their inventory so they can piece them out themselves. High-end stuff even. Low-end, high-end, mid-range, all that above. As long as the set's worth hundreds of dollars, that sort of business is there. There's people, somebody I personally know, that buys, and his whole business is structured on the fact that he knows how to tear apart, rebuild the dough machines. And there's one part in a dough machine, and I'm not going to give it out. He showed me how to do it. Anyway, there's one part in those that's worth a lot of money. And he can get them for almost nothing everywhere he goes almost because people get them as a gift. It seems to be a big nuisance, and then, boom, they don't want to do it anymore. I've seen hundreds and hundreds of those machines, and most of them have barely been used 2 or 3 times. It's just like there's a South Park episode of the Margaritaville machine. It's the same basic principle. So anyway, pros and cons list. What should you sell? Go through this process. Don't think it's beneath you. Don't think that you don't need to do it. Go back to school. Think of it as learning, as going back to school for a minute and figuring it out yourself. How do you figure it out yourself? You make yourself a pros and cons list. I can source at a mall, for crying out loud. At the mall. And the mall doesn't sell used stuff. You know, we've made a lot of money off of 3 stores in the mall. 4 stores, kind of, if I really wanted to. But I ended up keeping some of the leather stuff. But anyway, so you've got to look at what's in your area. You've got to do the pros and cons. You've got to figure out what's going to give you the best results. The ones with the most cons are not going to give you the best results. Another pro or con would be, what's the average price of that type of item you're getting? You could start off and try some areas and then write these numbers down, keep track of the profit margins, keep track of your sell-through rate in the items that you're selling. You don't have to do specific sell-through rates of each item. We're just talking about your categories, and then compare category to category. Well, this category gives me a higher sell-through rate than the other one. If you're not getting a high sell-through rate selling clothing, but you started selling video games or something, and the video game sell-through rate is far superior to clothing, and the return rate's a tenth of it, it's a no-brainer. You start moving to video games. We've bought 400 video games at a time. It's not undoable. You'll see people selling collections. You know, there was somebody who said they would stand out. I don't know if this is true, but they'd stand outside video game places and stuff during like holiday times, and they'd hand out flyers to people, and people would buy or sell them to this guy instead of going to the store. He'd pay a little more, you know, and stuff like. But anyway, long story short, I know I'm rambling again there, but that's the basics to figure out what's the best things to sell for you. It's not. I know everybody talks about what's the hottest item selling right now. Usually it's going to end up being a flooded category in a very short period of time. What's hot now may not be hot next month. When clothing's bought, and a lot of the toys and stuff are bought, they're bought sometimes 18 months out. 18 months before they're landed in this country, those items are purchased from a toy fair. Some of them are based on a movie maybe coming out next year, and they have advanced, you know, previews of items, or they've got catalog sheets of what they're going to be producing. They'll do an order office stuff like that ahead of time. You can't always rely on what's selling now, because a lot of the merchandise was already bought and sold to somebody long before they got hot. Yeah, you might run into some of the hot items. They might be something to look for, but I don't have, again, that opportunity here for most of the items that everybody says is selling. When exercise equipment was selling, people were going into local stores the second time around, I think, or there's 2 or 3 of them around here. They're in a couple strip malls. They buy used exercise equipment. We looked for one. I ended up finding we looked for a nice treadmill for the wife. And we ended up finding one at a thrift store on the other side of town for $25. She's had it for five years, I want to say, and it's worked perfect. It looked like no one used it. The ones at the second time around were, you know, $1,000 for a better one. But people were selling everything there. Nothing was up for sale locally. It was all going because they got instant cash. So I can't do it even when people were selling it left and right and people were trying to buy it. It was one of the hottest things for a little while there, and I couldn't get into it. I couldn't get it. So it doesn't matter what's hot to me. It only matters what I can get, what I figured out how to source. Hot items mean nothing if you can't find them. Who cares what's hot? You know, obviously if you run into it, you should at least know, hey, that's probably a decent item. Let me look it up. If I think something's worth $15 or more, I'm going to always look it up. Even if I don't think it, but I'm not sure, I'll still look it up. That's what your phone's for. You know, that's probably the best tool in this industry is a phone these days. And that's all I really use my phone for mostly. Yeah, I know I'm rambling, so I know I'm rambling here. Let me pop back down and see where we're at on here. Hang on a second. I know I've got a lot of names. I'm not going to start calling them out at this point because I know I've probably missed a whole bunch. Once you get so far down, I can't even look at the top of the feed anymore at all. It's bounced up and down 2 or 3 times now. Yeah, some items, somebody's talking about Chrome postcards. Chrome sell. Annie, she's got a channel here too. I don't know if she's in the feed now, but I've talked to Annie for some time. She's the one who pointed out that Chrome cards. So I used to pass them by because they never used to sell, but she was right. They do sell. Mike, another follower in here, was talking about matchbooks and lots on a scanning bed. Sure enough, they sell very well. Again, if I can scan one scan and fill up a flatbed, that's as good as taking just one single photo, because I don't have to I don't have to crop it. It's just one photo worth. It's a lot. That's a little different. It's not as time consuming as like a lot of 12 LPs. This takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time to do stuff like that. Over 5 photos. In fact, I like to stick to 2 or 3 photos max for anything. I like to only list the stuff that we can usually scan first. And I've got so much of it, I haven't even had to take, other than some toys. We did some toys not too long ago. I don't even get out the camera as much these days either. And we've got a couple of them here. It used to be all camera, but now it's more so we've even switched away again because the pros for doing it this way are so much better. You don't have a tripod, you don't have a camera, you don't have any of that stuff. It's just feeding a scanner as quick as you can fit those things in there. And again, that's why we've listed what we do, because volume. I can list volume, I can buy it in volume, I can sell it in volume, I can store it in volume, I can ship it in volume. Again, it's all bulk. It's all bulk. Yeah, I've rambled for a little while here. Let's look through some of the comments here. I don't cut buttons off clothing, so I get buttons in mass quantity from collectors, lifelong collectors, and from businesses. So I don't cut it. I wouldn't take the time to do it. Maybe once in a blue moon I might cut off a patch off of a jacket, just because the patch is all the money, and shipping costs on a heavy, like a winter flight jacket that's only worth $30. The shipping's almost as much as that, but the patch may have been worth $200. So I've sold stuff and they've told me, cut the patch off. I don't give a hoot about the jacket. So anyway. Yeah, I don't know how you could list 200 postcards in an hour, truthfully. Not to crack on you, but I've listed postcards for years, 20 plus years, and there's no way. You would be listing one like every 20 seconds. And I don't know how you could even load the photos and type in a title in 20 seconds. It'd be, I think the most we've ever done is 63, and that was me doing it. And I'm not changing anything in my description box. All I'm doing is 2 photos. I'm not doing the third zoom in. I'm just doing the title, and they're all lined up in the same price structure. I don't have to change anything else other than the title and the photos, I think, basically on it. The condition box is a generalized statement, may have creases, tears, rips, or corner issues. Please see the images for an accurate idea on the condition of the item, or something along that line. I guess that's the gist on it. I would like to see how somebody could do 200. I can't see it's humanly possible. I know even Popeye can't. Popeye's postcards can't touch anything like that. Let's see here. Good to see you again. Naomi, it depends on what you're selling. If you're selling postcards and stuff and you're selling enough of them, you can get a used duplex by Epson. Epson is the brand I have. We have 2 Epson DS510 duplex scanners. I paid $100 shipped for the first one with the cords, the books, and the CD. And the second one, I think I got the cords and the scanner for like $92 shipped. So if you buy a scanner, a duplex, buy one at least DS510 or newer. So the numbers will be higher for the newer ones mostly. The flatbed we use is a V600 Epson photo negative scanner. It scans. It has a scan plate on both sides. The top of the lid has a scan plate and the bottom, so I can scan negatives. And then with that, I can also even make a print out of it, even if I want to. I can just invert the scheme, so instead of being negative, it'll be positive, and boom, it looks just like a real image. If you're in my Patreon, I got videos showing you literally how to do that entire process. With the V600 software that comes with it, you can stitch together. Sometimes if, let's say, you've got a glass plate negative, you might have to do 3 separate scans because the scan plate for negative is only about that wide on the scanner. It's a big scanner, but the plate for negatives isn't as big. It's used to doing, strips and like 35 millimeter strips and stuff like that. But the point of it is it'll actually stitch them together for you automatically, and it does an extremely good job. So that scanner, the V600 photo scanner, does everything. It's like one of the best ones quality-wise. But anyway, I know I'm rambling again. Yeah, I love empty boxes. We've sold just boxes of stuff. back probably, I don't know, 25 years ago. I was living in Florida, and there was, what was that, Hiawassee, I think, and Highway 50 maybe. There was a thrift store. I don't remember what the name of it was, but we got some Microman, original Japanese Micromans from this one. The toys were all missing their heads. I don't know what the deal was, but we ended up making a ton of money. And then we came back the next week, and there was just empty boxes, all flattened down, and they had strung them together with a string. So there was like 12 boxes that were empty from toys. The same toys, mind you. And I think there was $5 or some crazy low price. We got like $60 for the cheapest one on there, and some of the boxes sold for hundreds, just for an empty box. But they were original Takara, Microman, I mean, really primo toys. And this was back then when, anyway, wasn't as many collectors and stuff. But yeah, if somebody's talking about, I think it looks like somebody's talking about the background. If you're using the new, even without the new one, you can get white backgrounds now on the desktop version, just FYI. If you've got the store, you've got white background ability with eBay's standard photo option. We use it now. I think I've done a video showing how to get rid of it even. I know some people say they don't like that. I know some folks like to put in, like if you're doing vintage, they'll put in a fancy doily or something in the background for Victorian issues and stuff. It clutters the image up. I don't really recommend that on eBay. Maybe Etsy might be a different story, but I wouldn't do it on eBay. Again, if you cross-list to Amazon and you're doing that, you can get your listings pulled for having something that's not for sale in your image. You can't have backgrounds on Amazon, just FYI. I use Amazon standard in case I ever want to cross-list. So if it won't go on Amazon, I'm not gonna use that photo. It has to be Amazon approved. 85% of the image has to be the item itself. The other 15% can only be white. So I only use that standard for everything these days, just because, again, if you want to cross-list, you get bigger. Maybe you wouldn't even think about it now, but maybe in 2 years you've gotten big enough now. You've got tens of thousands of listings. You want to promote them out on Amazon, and the easiest way to do that is just to, hook them up and broadcast them out from a channel like on Shopify or something, but you could get dinged, and a couple of those could ding your whole account, so you got to be careful. Thank you, Candace. I appreciate the comment there. Sticky keys. I'm not sure what you got on the sticky keys, but let me pop down and see where we're at. Between two people, I don't know if I could even do 100 by myself, postcards, because that's still, it's almost 2 a minute. That's 30 seconds. 54 seconds, I think, we've timed it. I mean, I'm not to be, I wanted to see where we're at and how other people compared to see how long it took. Anyway, I'm anal retentive on that, but I don't think we were able to do more than that. I just don't see it possible for us, unless you're cutting shortcuts, and I only one photo, and I just don't see it. Tommy's saying he'd rather blow. I'm not going to repeat it. Nothing wrong with it. I just don't want the YouTube censors popping out there. But I can list hundreds of items a day, and I get a kick out of it, honestly, only because it means I'm making more money. If I want to make more money, I just list more items. That's it. I don't buy crap, so I'm not listing crap. The items I buy, a large chunk of them, like 90% maybe a hair higher than that, are long tail. But we hit a point, again, once we got it in bulk, I hit a point where I'm fine with that. We started off with most of it wasn't long tail, and you'll have to do the same thing probably, but again, I don't mind stuff sitting for a while at all. I don't mind them being long tail because I always get more money. I'd rather have the slow diamond than the quick nickel these days, again, because once you have enough up, once you've hit that bulk mark, you're able to get bulk, and you're able to list more because you're not wasting all your time sourcing. You'll be able to get far more quantity up, and you'll grow exponentially is the hope for it. The more you list, the more you're going to make. The bigger you'll grow, the bigger your footprint will be on eBay or any other platform you're on. The more you list in a category specifically, the bigger your footprint. And some pages, now that my stuff's rotated into the mix so much from, end and sell similar and relists and all that kind of stuff, there's items in some, if you do some searches, that my items are like every other item. in smaller categories and smaller niches. There's some that I'm, 25% out of 100 of the listings that show up are my items, and they're dispersed out between it. It's not a brag. It's just something you want to look forward to. And again, I can't do that in clothing. It's another big pro. A big pro for collectibles versus clothing or records or something is I have multi-item sales to the same person pretty much almost daily. I can't think of a day today there were several. So I can't think of a time where I don't sell 3, 4, 5, 6 items to the same person routinely with what we sell. So that really boosts my average, sale to a person. It boosts up everything. It cuts down my shipping supplies. There's just so many bonuses for it. That's another aspect that's a pros or a cons for whatever you're selling. Is it hard to ship? How easy is it to ship a postcard? I wrap a piece of cardboard around it and I slap it in a poly bag and stick a sticker on it for the label. That's it. I'm done. It's like 1 minute and 10 seconds a postcard or some crazy number low. I don't know, maybe not. It's not even that much. And that's even counting my pick time. Everything's numbered. I've got a whole system for storage. I've talked about that before. I can find anything out of 30,000 items in the store I share with you in probably 35, 40 seconds maybe. Maybe at best, if it's in a earlier item that we have a little larger amount of items in a bin, it might take me 1.5 minutes. But other than that, so every aspect. Now, clothing, it might take a little bit. If you're selling jeans and they all look the same, you've got to mark them, you've got to bag them, and all kinds of other things. You've got to clean clothing. You're not supposed to sell, dirty clothing, unwashed clothing. So that's another step in there. There's just so many things that steer us away from certain items. Anything that could cause a libel suit or that could endanger somebody. I don't sell infant items at all. I don't sell high-end electronics themselves anymore at all either. I'd rather, even if it works, I'll usually either try and sell it locally, or they can test it, I'll get cash and I'll be done, or sell it to somebody else that they can deal with it, or I'll piece it out. I'll take the electronic item apart, even if it works, and sell it that way in parts. I've never had an issue selling parts that way. So again, there's a billion things to sell. There's nothing out there that you shouldn't be able to find. You should be able to find pretty much any category. Maybe not specifically right there in your city, but there's usually a source for everything. If you want to do clothing, as I said, there are wholesale clothing places. You can buy a pallet of clothing. You can buy all sorts of different things like that. I'm sure you can buy a pallet of comic books from places as well too. I'm not looking for pallets, so I haven't really done it, but long boxes are easy. Multiple long boxes are easy. Not super easy for everybody, but in certain areas, like up here, comic books have always been a big thing. I'm lucky enough, I know people my age that know who I am, and I'll get comic books, sometimes from people I remember as a kid calling me up and realizing, hey, he buys all that stuff, or the word got around, and people I used to hang out with had their comic books since when I was buying them with them, and they've come to me too, so. Gimbal, a con for 78s are more brittle, so much more packaging. I don't mind packaging up a 78 because I've got it down pat. I use a 12-inch cubed box. I use one flap from another 12-inch box to fold around a 78, and the rest is just a few, some cushioning. I haven't had one broken in other than my own mistake in years, a decade probably or more. It only takes me maybe 3 minutes to do a 78 in all honesty, but I've got all the supplies and we've got stacks of 12-inch cubes and stuff, so it might be a con for some folks. It's not for me. I don't mind at all. And storing them, it's really easy if you're careful. I use smaller storage bins. I think I can store maybe 100 or so in each bin. They're all numbered just like any other item I have. Average price I get out of most 78s is around $30 a pop. In all honesty, that's my average sale price for a 78. So for $30 for 3 or 4 minutes, it's no big deal. To take a photo, it's easy. It's 2 photos front and back, and that's it. It's really easy. I can do a whole stack of them in just a few minutes, honestly. Irene at Fab, to find she takes clothing on the floor, remove background. I've had people tell me that too. The only thing I found is they like to see how it fits more so. And I've heard so many people tell me the exact same thing on flat versus on a mannequin. If it's on a body form or mannequin, they can at least see how the cut fits. My wife hates when in fact, she hasn't ordered any in a while, but she's ordered some like on Amazon and stuff, and she's we're so selective on stuff like that, because if they don't show it specifically, you can't tell if the neckline's here or if the waist. It's I find that hard, at least on female clothing. No disrespect, that's just what I found out. If it works for you, more power definitely to you. I do like 78s. I love the early picture, the colored lacquer too. Hey Daryl, Carolina Picks, how are you doing? I got Marty in the house, flipping Jiminy Flippit, another fellow YouTuber as well. I know I've missed a lot of folks calling out. I need to reload my page because my feed is just lagging on the screen. There we go. That looks better. Do I listen to records? If I've heard them, no. If I know the songs, no. I use visual grading for everything these days. I haven't been wrong on a graded record, and I don't know how long. At least not that I'm aware of. No one's ever pointed one out. I undergrade or try to undergrade on records to begin with. I'd rather have somebody ecstatic because the record was better than they thought it would be, as opposed to, just so-so. I don't mind. I'm not greedy. I'd rather have the person be happy than make an extra 10 or 15 bucks, to be honest with you. Reputation means a lot. Repeat business is huge, so I would never want to jeopardize it by grading it improperly too. So that's always a huge issue. A con for records is a learning curve for grading. That's a con for records for most people, is a learning curve. Shipment can be a con, like what was it, Gamble? I'm sorry if the feed's way over, so I don't know if that's the name, but hang on, I'm trying to see where we're at. Yeah, I don't think I'll even be able to figure out where I'm at. I think it's already bopped where I can't even get it. Yeah, I think I'm already too far down to even go back to where I was just looking at. Sorry, folks. Hey, Dave, Midwest Picker, another YouTuber in-house. How you doing, Dave? I sold an empty vintage car model box for 50 bucks. Perfect example. I always save boxes. I grab them up all the time. And not only that, if it's something I run into a lot, like Star Wars toys or something, vintage or something, I'll save empty boxes until I run into the toy itself. I'm in no hurry to sell stuff. We've got shelves of just boxes of stuff that there's nothing in the box, and we'll run into it here or there. Sometimes it'll be like a Nancy Drew lot or something. I'll get 4 or 5 of them, and I'll set them aside till I get 4 or 5 more, or I find the whole collection. Sometimes I want to sell the whole set, or like a Wizard of Oz, the 1960s set with the hard cloth covers with the images from the original. I can't think of the name of the publisher. I just talked about that the other day, but oh well, it doesn't matter. But stuff like that I try to put together. I try to list multiples of tied-in items together. So if I only find one of something and I hope to find some more within the next couple of weeks, or it's something I run into often enough, I'll just set it aside till I get more. So at the end of the day, it saves us the trouble of bouncing back and forth from category to category and changing my description box or condition box just for one item. I want to have bunches of stuff at the same time. It saves me time not listing certain items because I don't have enough of them to make it worth the while. If you play in niches, the whole game, again, pros and cons on niches or whatever you think about you want to sell. Pros with niches is that you'll get repeat business if you keep listing items in those niches. They'll save you. They're with collectibles and niches like that, once someone gets a dealer who supplies them the top-notch service and you keep that up, you honor everything that you do, you make a simple mistake, you give it to, whatever you got to do to make the customer happy, they're going to come back to you. I've got customers that have been buying us for years, decade or more, in all honesty. And they'll pay more to get it from me than from somebody else who they can't trust, who they don't know, or they've had mixed results from. Even again, if I charge more for some of the items, there's a perceived value that goes along with it. There's a perceived value that goes along with free returns. There's a perceived value that goes along with 100% feedback or darn good feedback. I do 30-day free returns and have for years, and I still almost never have a return. You know? Sometimes I'll let them keep it. It's just not worth the hassle, and I'll give them something else, or I'll give them a coupon for something in the future. Just, hey, email me if you find something you want in the near future, and I'll be happy to, whatever you got to do. But Again, those are pros and cons going across the board. I do that for everything. It's what you got to do. You've got to put together a pros and cons list to see what's best. Maybe you're too excited about the specific item, but you haven't thought about it enough. You haven't looked into all the aspects. What's your COGS on it? How much is it going to cost you? What's your profit margin on this item versus that item? What's going to give you more bang for your buck? What's going to make you the most money? Is it a business or is this fun for you? If it's fun, fine, do whatever. But if it's a business, treat it like a business and start from the bottom end and figure out all that stuff. Figure out your COGS, your cost of goods, your sell-through rate for that category or whatever. Again, I don't look at specifics other than major category sell-through rates because it's just not, it doesn't matter most of the time. If you're selling in collectibles, the chances of somebody having that exact same item as you is usually very slim. You know, like a same postcard. Unless it's a huge city like San Francisco or Detroit or Atlanta or something or Chicago, there's not going to be 20 people selling the same item as you have in the postcard field. You know, maybe a Detroit card or Atlanta or San Francisco or something, just because there's so many of them. Like the fishing wharf in San Francisco. They're a dime a dozen because every tourist who went there got one of the postcards from 1910 on up to the 80s or whatever. So that's all pros and cons. Again, I know maybe to some folks that may have just seemed like a big ramble, but that's all there is to figuring out what to sell. I don't go after the best selling items again because I can't get them. So it all comes down to what you can get. Pros and cons. Can you get it? No, that's a con. I can't get it. Why am I wasting my time? Because somebody says, hey, this is going to sell and it's worth a lot of money. If I watched a video, I don't watch many, as I said, I have vision issues still, but if I watch a video and somebody's saying, hey, buy this, I bought this, so you should buy it, how am I going to ever find that exact same thing that other person found? Maybe one or two people might run into it, but it's not practical. The best aspect is picking specific categories themselves. Anything related to transportation is usually pretty good if it's pre-1970. Anything, mostly. Trains, even bus items sell. U.S. Postcards. There's so many different postcards. I don't care what genre of a postcard it is. I don't care if it's specifically real photo, real picture postcard. I don't care if it's military. I don't care if it's a tourist card. I don't care if it's a town view, a pharmacy, a grocery. It doesn't matter. There's an aspect from most cities that something in there is probably worth something. So, again, I'm not going to ramble too much longer here, but hopefully that all made some sense on it. Hang on a second. Free for 35. Let me hang on. Let's see what we got going on in the chat real quick. Yeah, Candace is talking about she buys something that isn't worth something once in a while. That happens. It's been a long time since I have because I just don't buy it anymore if I'm not sure. I'll look up a dollar record if I'm out, but I only buy them in bulk usually, so I don't even worry. Once I see a value, I stop checking and then you just come home with us or drop it off in storage or something. But, you know, if books have Library of Congress on the inside of them, does that give or take away their value? I'm assuming you're talking about a hand stamp that says Library of Congress. It depends on what the book is, I would have to tell you. Without knowing the type of book, it's meaningless having that or not having that. If it said from the Library of Geo Washington, George Washington or something, that'd be a different story. Having it from a specific collection, sometimes they'll have a book plate in it. Some people buy books just because of who owned it. So a book from Aleister Crowley or something would be a good example of that. People buy anything that was owned by him if it has a book plate or something in it, or one from like Stephen King's personal collection or something like that. Library of Congress necessarily doesn't mean anything special because it's a library. It's literally a library that you can take out books, not every single person, but specific people. There's a law library there and all that kind of stuff too. Yeah, Sandy, I do. Everything is wrapped in cardboard. I wrap books in a piece of cardboard, a little hair bigger than the book itself. And then that book, wrapped in cardboard, goes in a poly bag, 9x12 or whatever size I need. That's another thing, too. Just when you're thinking about shipping something, you've got to know the cost of shipping supplies for whatever you're buying. I know a lot of people just throw clothing in padded envelopes and things like that. I never did that. It was wrapped in cardboard or went in one of the little boxes from eBay. Always, always, because if somebody stabbed the bag or something else happened, or it got stuck in something, I just put it all in boxes or wrapped it in cardboard. Everything gets wrapped in cardboard. Everything. I never put anything dropped in a poly bag or even in a bubble wrapped, the bubble poly bags or anything else like that. I've always felt like I'll take the extra few moments or whatever the case may be. So keep that in mind when you're going after this too. If you're selling books, you got to remember they weigh a lot. Cost is cheap to ship, but they weigh a lot. If you're selling car parts, metal car parts, they weigh a lot. So shipping may be impractical for certain things for you to sell. High-end electronics, shipping rates are high. Damage rate could be high on a vintage piece that has tubes. If it has tubes, I don't want to sell it as a working unit. I don't want to take the chance and having to have a return or someone trying to scam or one of the vacuum tubes went out while it was transporting and it arrived DOA. I don't want to take any DOA options. I don't want that aspect of it. So again, the con rates are higher. The scammers are higher in high-end electronics. Video games, there's some scammers out there, but I, again, try to keep to specifics. I don't go after $10,000 comics. I don't go after $5,000 shoes. I don't go after $5,000 bags, ladies' bags or anything. I can't get them, and even if I could, I wouldn't want to mess with them. The risk factor, the risk is too high. I'd rather sell, $200 or $300 items all day long than ever mess with trying to get a $5,000 item in here or there. Yeah, it's a lot of money, but the risk is so much greater with those types of items. If it doesn't show delivered, even with insurance, and you did the ship cover insurance, they're going to keep a big fee out of that, and you could lose hundreds of dollars. You don't get all your money back from that. And if you do insurance through the post office, you have to produce a bunch of crap. And anyway, it can always be a hassle, even trying to cover it that way. And if eBay, to produce an eBay saying, no, they're not going to help you, and you take it and you even go to court over some of these cases, you might not win anyway. So there's risk factor in everything that we sell. Those are all factors you have to figure out. Again, what we sell now is partially from pros and cons, and then once we figured out the category, it found us. Everything we sell found us. None of the stuff I used to sell 15 years ago. Random items. I used to pick up whatever we could find. And that's since changed. I'm able to direct what we sell because I can keep getting the same types of items, and we expand. We get a newer type here, or we might get a new niche here or there. Excuse me. Up until about 2 years ago, I couldn't sell buttons in quantity. I didn't have any sources, but I found several sources now, and they're so plentiful. I even ended up selling like 10 or 15 pounds on Whatnot of just vintage uniform buttons in lots. I think I selling 10 or 12 ounce lots. I think I sold like 30 of them or more. It was a lot. I sold a whole bunch of buttons in bulk that way. Again, because I got so many of them. I could list buttons probably for the next 3 or 4 years straight. If it was just me listing them, and I still probably would have buttons left over. So again, it depends on what you're able to get. That's the end of the story here. We're going to let it go at that. Hopefully you enjoyed the conversation. If you did, please slam that thumbs up there. I probably haven't said that at all tonight. I'm terrible on promoting myself or anything else like that. If you're in Patreon, I've posted 2 videos today. The first video is, I think, about 8 or 10 minutes long. It's the results of something that I found out. You'll want to watch it if you sell on eBay. It's true. I ran a test for many weeks. I've talked to many other Patrons as well as people who are big-time resellers, and we all come to the same conclusion. Watch the video. The second one is a bolo for you. It's one that several of you have asked after I showed some items in another video. You've asked some questions, and it's your answer. I think that one's like 25 or 30 minutes long, so you got about 45 minutes worth of content after the show if you want to head on over there. I've responded to all emails prior to the show. I think there's maybe 20 notifications other than that are all, might be some other things. So I'll hit up everybody else that's already posted prior to the show. Any that come in after the show, I will probably go ahead and hit tomorrow or the next day. I will have still another video at least coming up this weekend for Patreons. Somebody asked on some questions specifically on setting up my setup for my store on my individual item pages. I'm going to do a quick breakdown video, so you'll probably have another bolo and that short 8 or 10 minute video for how to set up your store to have all the links like I show too. So anyway, that'll be the Patreon 2 videos coming up this week. Next week I've got a stamp one. Again, I've tried to mix up the videos for Patreon because I know I don't want to bore everybody with real in-depth all on the same topic. Some people aren't interested in it, so I'm going to keep splitting them up like this. You've had 3 or 4 different types of deep dives this in the last, say, 5 weeks. I've done the records and what else? We've done a bunch of them. Military paper. I do have a paper haul too, so in the next probably 2 weeks I've got a real nice paper haul of some fabulous China stuff that I think will knock some of your socks off. If any of you here remember the $1,000 Chinese ID I sold from a CBI U.S. soldier, I got stuff like that again. That one sold for $1,000. It was just one piece of paper with a tiny photo from China from 1942. I got $1,000 out of it. I only paid a couple bucks. So anyway, we're going to let it go out there. I know I'm rambling again. I appreciate everybody coming in. Again, if you haven't slammed that thumbs up button, please hit that thumbs up. Appreciate it. I have another video for YouTube that is almost done. It'll be up tomorrow.